the rejected Luna, who became the moon goddess's heir. They cast her out beneath the bleeding moon. The Luna who failed to bear an heir, branded cursed, forgotten by her pack, and abandoned by the mate she loved. But the moon never forgets its daughters, and when the night cried for vengeance, it was her blood the goddess chose. The rejection. The night the Alpha rejected her, the moon burned red. Alara stood before the entire crescent pack, her heart breaking in the cold wind as Alpha Kale's voice echoed across the temple grounds. His words were sharp enough to carve through bone. I, Kale of the Crescent bloodline, reject you, Alara Vane, as my Luna. It was supposed to be a bond written by the stars. Fated, sacred, eternal. But the moment the words left his lips, Alara felt it. The tearing of something invisible deep within her chest. The mark on her collarbone, once silver and warm, turned to ash. Gasps filled the courtyard. Some wolves looked away, pity in their eyes. Others smirked. In their world, rejection was death by humiliation. A Luna without a mate was nothing. A broken vow, a discarded promise. Alara tried to stand tall. "You can't do this," she whispered, voice trembling but proud. "The moon chose us. You swore to." Kale's gaze hardened. "The moon may choose, but I decide." He turned away. His new chosen mate, Serene, the highborn daughter of the rival Bloodfang clan, standing beside him like a shadow. Her eyes glimmered with satisfaction. Alara felt her knees weaken. The pack she once led now looked through her like glass. The temple bells tolled, their chimes hollow and cruel. By dawn, her name was erased from every scroll. Her chamber stripped, her scent burned from the Alpha's den. She left barefoot into the forest, the cold earth biting her skin. For 3 nights she wandered the woods in silence, her tears mixing with the rain. The bond mark on her skin pulsed faintly, the ghost of a love that had become poison. Every step she took, she heard whispers in the trees, old voices, familiar yet distant. The forest was ancient, older than any pack. Legend said the moon goddess herself once walked here, blessing her chosen lunas with light eternal. But Alara was no longer chosen. She was cast away. When her strength finally gave out, she fell beside a stream. The water shimmered with strange silver light. Exhausted, she whispered, "If the moon truly sees us all, why didn't you save me?" The wind stilled. The forest hushed. Then the moonlight shifted. The silver glow from the stream began to rise. Threads of light curling around her hands, her arms, her face. The air smelled of night-blooming flowers and forgotten magic. Alara gasped, trying to crawl back, but the light followed her. It wasn't burning. It was warm, alive. A voice, soft and ancient, filled her mind. "You were never meant to be his Luna, child of tears. You were meant to be mine." Alara froze, her heart pounding. Who are you?" "The one your kind prays to and forgets in the same breath. The one whose light you curse when love betrays you." The air trembled. "The moon," Alara whispered. A figure emerged from the light, tall, robed in silver mist. Her eyes 2 infinite galaxies. The moon goddess herself stood before her, radiant and terrible. "You carried love's pain without vengeance," the goddess said. "You bled without hate. You were cast out, yet you did not curse my name." Alara bowed her head, trembling. "I am nothing now." "No," said the goddess, her voice like starlight. You are everything they have forgotten, and I will show them what happens when they reject the light that made them." The goddess extended her hand. "Rise, Ilara, daughter of sorrow, heir to my crown." The ground trembled. The stream flared silver white. Ilara's breath caught. "Heir, take it, and the moon shall answer your call. Refuse it, and fade like all forgotten hearts." For a long moment, Ilara hesitated. She thought of Kale, of the pain, the humiliation, of the Luna she had once been. Weak, obedient, hopeful. That woman was gone. She raised her head, meeting the goddess's gaze. "Then I will rise." The moon smiled. Light engulfed her body, tearing through every vein and bone. The agony was divine, cleansing, endless. When the light faded, the girl who had been rejected was no longer mortal. Her eyes burned with silver fire. Her heartbeat echoed with the rhythm of tides. And when she stood beneath the moon, the forest bent in worship. Ilara had been rejected by her alpha, but she had been chosen by the moon, and the night had just begun to remember her name. The blood moon's curse. The blood moon had always been sacred among the wolves. It was the night when fates were rewritten, when the moon goddess herself walked between the living and the dead. But for Lyra, it had always meant something else. Pain. It was on a blood moon night that she was rejected, 3 years ago, when the moon burned crimson and the pack gathered under its light. The prophecy declared that the Alpha of Crescent Ridge would find his destined mate. Every female waited breathlessly, hearts thundering with hope. But when Alpha Kale, the fiercest and most revered leader among the northern packs, walked straight toward her, the whispers stopped cold. "The Omega?" Someone gasped. Lyra had been trembling, her heart pounding against her ribs. Her scent had matched his, pure, undeniable proof that she was his fated Luna. But Kale's eyes, sharp and proud, darkened with fury. "This must be a mistake," he had growled, his voice carrying over the shocked crowd. The moon goddess would never choose an Omega for an Alpha, and before the moon could fade, Kale had spoken the words that shattered her soul. "I, Alpha Kale of Crescent Ridge, reject you, Lyra, as my fated mate." The rejection burned through her like molten fire. Her wolf whimpered inside, fading to a thin whine of agony. That night, Lyra fell to her knees under the scarlet moon, her tears mixing with blood, her heart hollowed out. And then, something else happened, something no one saw. As the moonlight hit her, the air around her shimmered. A voice, not heard but felt, whispered through her mind, "You will rise, child of sorrow. The one rejected shall carry my light." It was the voice of the moon goddess herself. But Lyra didn't understand it then. How could she? She was broken, cast out, and soon after, banished from the pack for disrupting destiny. Kale took another as his Luna, Selene, the daughter of the High Alpha Council, and Lyra disappeared into the wildlands. For years, she wandered the forests beyond the borders, surviving on scraps, hunted by rogues, haunted by nightmares. But the goddess's whisper never left her dreams. Every blood moon, she saw flashes of light, a temple of white stone, a silver crown, a voice calling her name, Lyra, rise. But she ignored it, thinking it a hallucination, until one night, deep in the frostbitten mountains, her wolf stirred again for the first time since the rejection. The wind howled through the trees, carrying a faint glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. She followed it, barefoot, over snow, her breath fogging in the cold. At the peak of the ridge stood a pool, glowing with lunar light. In its reflection, she didn't see herself as the broken Omega, but as something more. Her hair shimmered like starlight. Her eyes glowed silver, and behind her reflection stood the moon goddess, radiant and ethereal. "You were never meant to be a Luna to a man, my child," the goddess said softly. "You were meant to be a Luna to the moon itself." Lyra fell to her knees. "Why me?" "I was rejected, cast aside, because rejection refines the chosen," the goddess replied. "The blood of my heir must be forged in pain. You will rise above the alphas who scorned you. When the next blood moon rises, your power will awaken." Then the light vanished, leaving her trembling and gasping on the mountain. From that night onward, Lyra began to change. The forest seemed to listen when she spoke. Wounds healed faster than before. Her eyes could pierce through darkness. Even wild wolves, feral, untamed, bowed before her. But power came with consequence. The packs began to whisper of a silver witch haunting the borders. Some claimed she was cursed. Others said she was blessed. When the news reached Alpha Kael, his fury was instant. "Find her. If she lives, she dies by my hand." But destiny was already moving. As the next blood moon approached, Lyra's body burned with energy she couldn't contain. Her dreams showed Kael's pack in chaos, blood flooding their lands, and a voice whispered again, "He rejected you once. Now he will kneel before you." The prophecy of the moon goddess was awakening. And Lyra, the rejected Luna, was no longer just a forgotten Omega. She was becoming something divine, something the world had never seen before, something that even alphas would fear. The awakening of the heir, the night of the next blood moon, came faster than Lyra expected. The sky burned crimson once more, and the world seemed to hold its breath. In the heart of the forest, Lyra stood barefoot by the glowing pool where the goddess had once appeared to her. Her pulse raced as light from the rising moon bled across her skin, illuminating every scar, every bruise, every memory of pain she'd carried since the night she was rejected. But this time, something was different. The light didn't burn her. It answered her. The air trembled. Her wolf, long silent since Kael's rejection, stirred awake inside her chest. "Lyra," the wolf whispered in her mind, its voice strong and ancient now. "She's calling you again." And then the forest erupted with sound. 1,000 howls echoing across the valleys, shaking the trees. The blood moon had fully risen. Lyra's eyes turned silver as she gasped, collapsing to her knees. Her veins pulsed with light. She saw visions flashing in front of her, past, present, and future colliding like waves. The faces of alphas, the cries of broken lunas, and a shadowed throne surrounded by starlight. In the center of it, she saw herself, crowned in silver fire. Her wolf howled, and Lyra's scream split the night. The light of the moon goddess poured into her body, filling her veins with power not meant for mortals. The pool rippled violently, and from it rose ancient runes that burned into her skin. Marks of divinity, marks of the moon's heir. When the storm of energy finally calmed, Lyra rose slowly. Her hair shimmered white as snow. Her eyes glowed like molten silver, and her presence radiated power so strong that even the night creatures knelt before her. She wasn't an Omega anymore. She wasn't even a Luna. She was the chosen heir of the moon, goddess, the first in centuries. But destiny never gifts. power without demanding sacrifice. From the shadows of the forest, a familiar scent reached her. Kyle. He had come with his warriors, his pack filling the woods like an army of shadows. They had tracked her for days, following rumors of the Silver Witch. Kale stepped forward, his golden eyes locked on her as his wolf growled low. "So it's true," he said coldly. "You live." Lyra's heart clenched, not with love, but with a strange, sharp calm. The man who had broken her stood before her again. The Alpha, who had chosen pride over destiny. "You came to finish what you started?" she asked softly. Kyle hesitated. The Lyra before him wasn't the trembling Omega he'd once cast aside. Her power was tangible. It shimmered in the air like heat. His wolf, usually dominant, whimpered in submission. "What have you become?" he muttered, almost in awe. Lyra's lips curved in a faint, almost sorrowful smile. "What the moon goddess always meant me to be." She took a step forward, the earth glowing beneath her bare feet. Kale's warriors shifted uneasily, but none dared move. The air itself seemed to obey her command. Then, suddenly the ground trembled. A surge of dark energy rippled from the east. A violent force that made Lyra's new power flicker. Her wolf snarled. "Something's coming," it warned. And then they appeared. Rogue wolves, hundreds of them, eyes glowing red, moving like a living storm. They weren't natural. They carried the scent of corruption, a darkness that reeked of death magic. Kale cursed under his breath and turned to his warriors. "Defensive formation! Protect the borders!" But Lyra raised her hand. Silver light spiraled from her palm, forming a glowing barrier that surrounded the clearing. The rogues hit the barrier like crashing waves, snarling and clawing, but they couldn't break through. Kale turned to her again, stunned. "You're protecting us." Lyra's gaze was cold and unreadable. "Even after everything you did, your pack doesn't deserve to fall to this darkness. But don't mistake mercy for forgiveness, Alpha." Her words cut like ice. As the moonlight pulsed stronger, Lyra's body floated inches off the ground. The runes on her arms flared, and a wave of lunar power exploded outward, dissolving the rogue wolves into dust. When silence fell again, Kale stood alone before her, his warriors trembling in awe. Lyra landed gently, her power fading into a soft glow. "You shouldn't have come here," she said quietly. "Your arrogance will be your undoing, Kale." He stepped closer, his eyes haunted. "You saved us, Lyra. Why?" She hesitated, her heart warring with her new divinity. "Because once I loved you, and even gods remember what love feels like. Before it dies." With that she turned away, the wind swirling her hair like threads of moonlight. As Kale watched her disappear into the forest, something inside him cracked. A guilt, a longing, a terror, because for the first time in his life, the Alpha King realized he hadn't rejected an Omega. He had rejected a goddess. And now, she was rising, the Alpha's regret and the moon's wrath. The world had grown quieter since that night. But for Kale, silence was a curse. Every echo of the wind reminded him of her voice. Every flicker of moonlight reminded him of the silver glow in her eyes when she turned away. It had been weeks since the battle in the forest, and yet the memory haunted him like a ghost. Lyra, the Omega he had once called weak. The woman he had cast aside in front of his entire pack, believing she would fade into nothing. But now, She was the moon goddess's heir, and she was no longer his. Kale sat alone in his chambers, the fire burning low. His reflection in the mirror looked hollow. A man wearing the crown of an alpha, but stripped of his soul. You were wrong, his wolf growled from deep within him. We rejected our mate, and the moon chose her instead. Kale slammed his fist into the table, his claws ripping through the wood. Lyra's voice was soft, but it carried the weight of worlds. The goddess sent me. A storm is coming, Kyle. One that will consume every pack touched by your arrogance. His jaw tightened. I will not take orders from the woman who turned her back on her alpha. Her eyes glowed, not with rage, but with a sorrow deeper than fury. I didn't turn my back. You did when you called me unworthy. And now, your pack will pay the price of your pride. Thunder cracked above them, and the earth beneath their feet shuddered. The moonlight turned blood red again, and from the distance, shadows began to form. Shapes that weren't human, weren't wolf, the forsaken, spirits of wolves who had died, rejected, cursed, unloved. They rose from the mist, their howls filling the air with agony. Lyra spread her hands, the runes on her arms flaring to life. The moon goddess commands balance. The alphas have taken too much. It's time to restore what was broken. Kale's warriors panicked, shifting into their wolves. But even in their mightiest forms, they could feel it. Fear. Kale stepped forward, his own wolf rising, his golden eyes burning bright. If you want my pack, you'll have to go through me. Lyra's expression softened, the faintest trace of grief flickering through her calm. I don't want your pack, Kale. I want your redemption. Her voice shook something inside him. The echo of what they once were, the bond he had denied but could never sever. Suddenly the Forsaken lunged. Kale's wolves met them in a frenzy of claws and light, but every strike seemed to pass through the spirits. The dead could not be slain. Kale turned to Lyra, shouting above the storm, "Help them! You're the goddess's heir. You can stop this." Lyra closed her eyes, whispering words in an ancient tongue. The blood moon pulsed, her body trembling, as she channeled the moon's power. Silver light erupted from her palms, spreading across the battlefield. Like a tidal wave, the Forsaken froze mid-leap, their cries fading into the wind. One by one, they dissolved into dust, their souls finally freed. When the storm settled, Kale fell to his knees, panting. His warriors were silent, watching as Lyra stood in the center of the devastation, her glow fading. Kale lifted his head. You saved us again. Why? Her voice was tired, her eyes weary. Because mercy is the moon's way, even when hearts don't deserve it. He stepped closer, rain running down his face, his expression raw. And what of me? Do I deserve it? Lyra met his gaze, and for a moment, the world held still. You deserve the chance to remember what love once meant. With that, she turned away once more, disappearing into the mist. But this time, Kale didn't call her back. He knew she wasn't his to command anymore. She belonged to something higher, something sacred. Yet deep inside, the bond between them flickered, fragile but alive, waiting for a moment only. The moon's judgment and the alpha's redemption days passed since the night of the storm. The forest was quiet again, too quiet. The scent of blood and magic still lingered in the air, a haunting reminder of what had been unleashed. Kale wandered the ruins of the battlefield alone, his boots sinking into the wet soil, where shadows had once held. The moon hung pale and thin in the sky. No longer crimson, no longer burning, but calm. He dropped to his knees. For the first time in years, the Alpha King bowed. "If she can hear me, if you can hear me, Goddess," he whispered, his voice raw. "Tell her I'm sorry." The wind stirred, soft and cold, brushing his cheek like a touch he once knew. From the darkness ahead, silver light bloomed, faint at first, then bright enough to pierce the mist. Lyra emerged, her gown flowing like liquid moonlight, her eyes no longer burning with divine fire, but soft, almost human again. "You called, Alpha," she said gently. Cale's throat tightened. He couldn't find words, only the ache that had hollowed him from within. "I was a fool," he managed. "I let pride blind me. I thought power was strength, but strength was you." Lyra stepped closer. The wind carried her scent, wild roses and rain. "The moon goddess doesn't punish forever, Cale," she murmured. "But she remembers." He lowered his head. "Can she forgive?" Her hand lifted, fingers brushing his jaw. A touch both tender and final. "She already has. That's why I'm here." For a moment, the bond between them flared. Bright, aching, alive. It wasn't the same fire of before. It was calmer, purer. Love stripped of possession, reborn in forgiveness. Lyra smiled faintly. "The moon gave me a kingdom beyond this one, but part of my heart will always remember the Alpha who taught me how strong love must be to survive rejection." And with that, her form dissolved into light, rising toward the moon above. Cale fell to his knees again, his tears lost to the wind, knowing that somewhere beyond the stars, his fated Luna now ruled beside the goddess herself. The rejected became divine, and the Alpha learned that no crown was heavier than regret.